now I've got three great panelists with me to discuss the topic of fighting for users. As you'll probably know, the mobile space is incredibly crowded. It's the app ecosystem that we use at the moment. I think there's 600,000 apps on the Apple Store and a similar number on Google Play. And of course, Google now has many other, Android has many other stores that you can go to, Amazon and hundreds of others. So how do you get your mobile product discovered? That's what we're going to try and talk about today, and also how you can retain and monetize the users that you do discover. So with me I have three guests. They are Derrick Fountain, who's the global product leader of Al Jazeera, Paul Bowen, who's general manager of Europe for TapJoy, and Jonathan Ferrebeuf, who's, what's your title, Jonathan?
A co-founder of Giftiz.
He's the co-founder of Giftiz. And so we're going to be talking to these three guys and getting their views on how this is all going to work. Only one of them has a presentation, and that's Derrick. So I'm going to start with him, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about Al Jazeera and what they're doing to find more users on the mobile channel.
So this is Derrick Fountain. I'm with Al Jazeera, based in Doha, and we manage a global portfolio of apps and mobile websites across a network of channels spanning Arabic, English, Bosnian, and soon to be launched Turkey. And so as part of our user acquisition strategy, we have 4 key components. One is that we build solid win-win relationships with vendors to bypass the app discovery problem. And so instead of investing heavily in increasing download volume or growing traffic, we try to build relationships with the handset manufacturers to try to get placement directly preloaded on certain devices and get better coverage. The second part of that is that we leverage internal and social networks to drive discovery. Because we have a strong presence on Facebook and Twitter across the Arabic and English channels, and so we leverage that audience to drive discovery as well. Another one is that we build syndication partnerships with aggregators, and so instead of competing with the Flipboards and the Pulse of the world, we build relationships with these aggregators to help to drive discovery of not only our content, but our apps. And then the last one is that we also invest in paid advertising. And so in order to do this, we try to figure out the most cost-effective sources of traffic, and also the most effective ways to retain those audiences once we acquire them. And so as an example of relationships with vendors, these are some of the vendors that we have really close relationships with. And so we have Nokia, Microsoft, you name it. We have close relationships with them. And because of, for example, with Windows 8 tablet, we launched an app with Microsoft, and because of the strong brand equity that we have in the Middle East, we were able to be featured as a spotlight app in the Windows 8 marketplace in the Middle East. And then with aggregators, and so for example, we've seen in Flipboard, our traffic in October doubled. And so there's a lot of people consuming long-form content in Flipboard. And so with Flipboard, this relationship, because we work closely with them, we get metrics. And so we can understand that there's a lot of programs, long-form content being consumed inside of this app. And that can help inform whether or not we need to bubble that out and build a standalone app, or do we need to raise the visibility of that within our own apps. The next one is direct marketing, and so paid user acquisition. That's an area that we're just starting to invest in. And this, it's a whole suite of activities that we do around new product launches. Whenever we launch a new suite of apps or a new portfolio of apps for a particular channel. And that's 4 sort of components of our user acquisition strategy and how we fight for users.
Great, very succinct, the way we like it. Thank you. So I'm going to bring in Paul Bowen from TapJoy now. Some of you may be aware TapJoy is one of the more colourful companies in the mobile space. And I'm going to let Paul explain why and how they've moved from a paper install model to something else, and how much trouble they got in for starting with that paper install model. So Paul, take it away.
Thank you. So my name is Paul. I'm General Manager of Europe for TapJoy. TapJoy is a app discovery and monetization platform. We operate on iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. We operate around what we call the mobile value exchange, and what that does is really connect consumers, advertisers, and app developers in a win-win situation for all three parties. And really, what we do is allow consumers to engage with advertisements, and in exchange for that engagement, they're rewarded with either virtual currency or premium content within an app that they're using. So an example might be they're playing a freemium style dating app and they want more currency to allow themselves to promote themselves at the listings in the dating app. They can download an app and they will receive currency for doing that. So we've been operating around 3 years now, started in 2010. And we were very, very successful on the iOS platform initially. So successful that Apple took exception to the volumes of downloads that we were able to create for any one app. And so they restricted us from operating our pay-per-install model from within their app store, so within the app. Since then, so that happened in 2011. Since then, we've worked hard on creating new ad formats for iOS to drive engagements for advertisers, but we've also moved quite quickly onto the Android platform because there aren't such restrictions on that platform.
Okay, so pay-per-install, to explain it even further, is basically paying, using virtual currency to entice people to download products. And then the idea is that once those products have been downloaded, they move up the rankings, and organic, genuine downloads will follow.
That's not the idea at all.
Okay, well that's the perceived idea.
I guess,
Tell me why that's wrong.
So I guess any marketer does not want wastage in their marketing plan. They want the most cost efficient marketing plan, and that means reaching the right users. There's marketers currently in the app space are concentrating on downloads of apps. Specifically, they're doing that on iOS because that's how the rankings work. They're not concentrating on acquiring quality. So through paid channels, they're not concentrating on acquiring users because that's not what rankings are based on. Now, as TapJoy, we would much prefer a marketer came to us and told us what their marketing objectives were. Now, marketing objectives aren't, I want someone to install this app, because almost you won't get revenue from that download. So as a company, we have a whole suite of solutions that allow a user to get to register for an app, for example. So take Meetic. Rather than Meetic paying us for the user to install the app, we can have the user subscribe to their subscription model, which is where the value is for Meetic, rather than the app install. So as a provider of solutions, that's much what we prefer to provide, because that has long-term benefit for the advertiser, and there's much more likely we're going to have a long-term partnership with that provider.
So are you saying that at no point did you ever have a model which was to entice people to install an app, and then for that app to go into the charts, and then for downloads to follow? Was that never the case? So
we operate a platform that allows advertisers to buy installs. So that we operate that platform. That doesn't mean that through any other marketing channel you can't do the same thing. You can very easily go to a marketing services provider who will do exactly the same thing for you. They will buy across 10 different channels, be it ad networks, be it free app type apps, be it companies like TapJoy, and you can do exactly the same thing. There's nothing unique about what we do compared to what you can do yourself if you go to multiple different channels.
Can you give us some numbers on how many app developers you're working with, and how many?
So we have We have our SDK implemented in 75,000 apps, and we monetize around 3,000.
Great. Okay. So Jonathan, tell us about Giftiz and how that works.
Yeah. So maybe I can introduce myself to you. So my name is Jonathan. I've been working for 3 years in the game industry, so more in the publisher side. I've been in charge of business development for a company called Acute Games Booster, and we have a big game called Urban Rivals, which is a freemium game, multi-platform game, so available on Android, iOS, and on the web, and Facebook also. And freemium app. And I've been in charge of the marketing and business there. And now I moved to the other side of the barrier. I just created a company called, we have a solution called Giftiz, which is really aiming at helping app developers specifically on Android to make money and to get more engaged users. So our concept is that users can basically download Giftiz on Google Play, and they can get points by achieving engaging missions in our partner apps. So like missions that require at least like 25 to 30 minutes to achieve. And they can also get points by making purchases in the apps or by buying apps. And with these points, they can get real gifts. So they can trade these points into real gifts through some kind of game mechanic. So the idea is really to gamify the app discovery and to basically send users who are going to really use the apps and also are going to pay within the apps or buy the apps. So the idea is really to send interesting users to our partners. So we've been on for a month. We just launched a month ago. And it's quite exciting. So I've been on the both sides, on the publisher side, and now more on the with this solution. We really want to help game publishers and also app publishers in general to get more of the apps, more money, and more users. Interesting ones, I mean.
So to get a real understanding of how it works, can you walk us through the user journey? If you know,
sure. So basically, you can, let's say you play a game. Basically, a partner has to integrate a SDK. So he has a small button, a small gift on his app, on the menu of his app. Then, if he clicks on the gift, he has an advertising for us, basically saying you can play, you can discover games, you can do missions, and you can win real gifts. So then the user is going to click on that. He says, "Oh, it's cool. I want to try it." He's redirected to our app on Google Play. Then he registers on our app, and then basically he has a list of tasks, a list of missions to do, which are engaging missions where he can get points. And each time he's going to make a mission on a partner app, he's going to be recognized by our system because all of our partners have the SDK. So the user will, this time when he will click on the gift button when he arrives on the partner game, he will have access to his information account, like how many coins he has, how many points he has. And then he will know when he accomplishes the mission or when he accomplishes the purchase. And when he comes back to Giftiz, he will get his reward and he will be able to trade these points into real gifts. So basically, our partners are kind of giving us some visibility in the apps. In exchange, we reward our users when they pay in these apps. So basically, the idea is really to increase the monetization of both the existing users of the publishers and the new ones. And then, you have a free model for the publishers to get that. And if they want more traffic, more visibility, they can pay for extra visibility on our system and be listed in the mission system, and then they'll get higher traffic. So, don't know if I'm clear here, but the idea of the whole system is to reward the users when they pay or give money to our partners or when they go far into the games or the apps.
How do they actually redeem those gifts? So you get to a certain number of points.
Yeah.
And can you tell me what kind of prizes you offer and how they actually redeem them in the real world?
So we start with virtual gifts, and then we have very fast Amazon gift cards, and then you have like all kinds of real gifts like smartphones and tablets and computers and so on.
And do you have? Are those partners giving those gifts to you in return for exposure, or do you buy them?
No. I mean, right now we actually pay for that. So the business model of the whole thing is that basically it's our partners who the one who choose the paid solution and want the most traffic, they need to pay for this traffic, so they pay us to send us interesting traffic. And then we devote a part of these revenues to the gifts, actually, that we buy for our users.
And how many users do you have, and how
So
many apps are you
So we
buying?
just launched 1 month ago, so we have around 30,000 registered users in 1 month. And we're working. We've been implemented in like 40 or 45 games, so and other types of apps, or 50, something like that. So it's starting. It's growing, and yeah, we're working already with a lot of publishers. I mean, we're also working, like, if sometimes people are not that happy to integrate SDKs. We're also working server-to-server side, so basically we can also find, with each partner we can find a good way to work with him. The idea is really to build strong partnerships and send users who are going to use the app and users who are going to pay within the apps or buy the apps if it's a paid app.
And finally, you're helping your partners to discover new users. How are you discovering new users? How do you find customers?
So basically, we do like everybody. So covers.
Use TapJoy, maybe.
We didn't have the right, unfortunately. We're working with other incentivized traffic also, but also like through ad networks, but also we have like our partners giving us some visibility, so we get significant traffic from that, and so basically that's it.
Okay. So Derrick, you're slightly different from these two guys. You're kind of trying to, instead of helping people to be discovered, you're trying to be discovered yourself. Can you tell us how you do that?
Right, and some of what we do is a lot similar to these models. They typically apply, the incentivized download model typically applies best towards games. And so we haven't really delved into that space yet. We are planning to invest in, we're experimenting with gaming in the future, but one example of our fighting for users and user acquisition in a paid advertising model is last year when the Libyan revolution was occurring. And we were forecasting and predicting when Gaddafi would fall. And so what we planned is a campaign across multiple touch points, digital media touch points, to actually drive awareness and get people to tune in and watch Al Jazeera's live coverage. And fortunately, across all of our portfolio of mobile apps, mobile and tablet apps, we have a live stream available. And so we reached out to a company. We did a campaign targeting Android and BlackBerry because those were some of the key strategic platforms for the region at the moment. And so we did campaigns for Android and BlackBerry to get people to actually download the BlackBerry app and tune in and watch the live coverage from Al Jazeera. And when we did that campaign, we were surprised that we saw like a 600% download increase in downloads for BlackBerry. And that's because BlackBerry has a very unique affinity in the Middle East. You know, everyone has a BlackBerry, everyone has like a BBM, and they're chatting and IMing. And so although it's, pretty much nascent and not really growing as much in other parts of the world, in the Middle East, everyone loves their BlackBerry. And so that was an impressive campaign that we saw. And we plan to do more of that, where it's not so much about the downloads, but we actually want people to tune in and watch our live coverage versus tuning in and watching that of our competitors. And so that's one way that we plan to remain competitive, is to do these types of campaigns, paid campaigns, to actually drive downloads and usage of our apps.
Are you monetizing directly through mobile at the moment?
Not at the moment. In our apps, we do plan to. So for the Arabic mobile website, we do monetize. So there are ads on the Arabic mobile website. But right now, we don't run ads in our English properties and also in our Balkans apps. But we do plan to in the future to look at monetization and balancing that with making sure that the users get to the actual content, that it doesn't get in the way. So we're exploring different ad formats to make that happen.
You said when you asked Derrick the question that we're slightly different, but actually we all have direct-to-consumer propositions that we're looking to market, really. So I think both TapJoy and Giftiz, rather than going to any paid route before we go before we get to any paid route, we're also looking at how we can co-market with people who have a shared objective with our business model. So TapJoy, we have on iOS, we have a HTML site. On Android, we have an app. Giftiz, they have an Android app. But you know, the people that we're trying to co-market with are people who have shared objectives as ours. So they are game developers who are willing to give us traffic because we'll give them money back. So I think, you know, in this Fighting for Users discussion, I think that's one of the first things, and actually Derrick talked about it in his little presentation. There were 4 sort of points that he went through. The last one was paid acquisition. Really, that's what I'd stress to anyone who's building an app. Really, one of the first things you should do is look at you know, where your users are, you know, where your target audience is, and what sort of current properties have a similar audience to yours, and whether you have shared objectives in what you want to achieve.
Is there a sort of sense that it's a race to the bottom here, that we're kind of, the consumers are less and less likely to spend money because there's so many freemium options? There's all manner of intermediaries such as yourselves trying to help them to get more free stuff in order to get a tiny sliver of them paying. Is there a sense that we're chasing people down?
I think that's a misunderstanding of the freemium model, really. I think the great thing about the freemium model is that you have these huge audiences that have very low costs to actually operate the businesses that they're operating. So the monetization that you need to pay to, you know, at least come cost neutral is actually quite small. And so really what you need to do is innovate on your product so you can then ask for more. You can ask for more money for your product because it has a differentiation, because you have quality content that is different from that anything else that anyone else can get. But I don't think that the freemium business model that, you know, we operate and work around is a race to the bottom. I think it's an acknowledgement of the technology and the cost of running these businesses, and it's a business model that works around that.
Actually, I'm speaking about maybe Android right now. I think it's the contrary. I think basically that as the market is going to be, I mean, Google Play is going to be more mature, and payment friction will be less and less important. I think that as we move, like, people are going to make more and more money on this platform. And so at the end of the day, the difference is that basically the difference is between the developers who just think about their product and don't think that there is marketing afterwards, and the others. As Paul said, it's really important at the very beginning to really think about your strategy to get your app out there. So basically, we propose ways, TapJoy and us, to get your app discovered and to make the most out of your app. That's the thing. So, and as far as the freemium model, I think that, I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes. It works. It works very well. And like most of the game publishers are right now choosing this model, and a lot of other apps also. And I think that the future is good. I mean, as you said, the challenge is to get out of the crowd because there are a lot of people. So,
I think I would say also on the whole freemium space and the value of it. I think you have to be sensitive to the markets that the apps operate in. And so in the US, you know, the freemium model is king. That's the core. But if you study the behavior of other markets and how consumers behave in for example, going back to like the Middle East and the region, there's been some research that showed that people don't mind paying for things up front. And so sometimes you may not have to go freemium by default. And also it depends on the platform and how much payment friction there is. So iOS, you know, alleviates a lot of that friction, and so you can make that happen easily. But if you look at BlackBerry and Windows, for example, you know, users may be more willing to pay for things. If you go to markets, I think Distimo put out a report recently on the revolution in monetization, and where the huge growth markets in Brazil and Mexico and places like that were seen as like the next big growth markets for monetizing mobile. And so it's, you know, you can't necessarily apply the US, what works there, and automatically assume that the same model is going to work outside of the US.
I think you can. If you look at the top grossing charts in UAE or Saudi, they're very, very similar to the US, bar some VPN apps because of the restrictions that. But there are, if you look at the top grossing, they are mostly US built freemium games. they're the top grossing games. Now, I think you're right on the platform. BlackBerry don't support in-app purchases, so I think that's going to restrict the amount of people building around freemium apps, because BlackBerry is by far the biggest platform in the Middle East, and so less app developers are going to build for the freemium business model because there isn't the penetration there. But I think on the platforms that support a freemium business model, i.e. Apple and Android, I really do think that I don't think it's a cultural thing. I think it is it's a platform penetration thing.
But it's certainly a cultural thing, and you know, people in these markets tend not to have credit cards, and so they can't use the App Store, can they?
So, I mean, I have an interesting experience about that. It's that when we were running our game on the web, basically we were proposing like different kind of payment solutions based on the country we were operating. So, like for instance, in South America, you need to have prepaid cards. You know, you have a lot of solutions where you can go to like a shop near the corner and pay, and then you get a code, and then you can put your code on this payment solution. So basically, yeah, that's true. You have like countries, even Southeast Asia, for instance, where people don't have credit cards. I mean, so the question is that at some point, is Apple or Google going to propose other payment solutions? Might be a good idea. I'm not, a payment solution expert, so maybe also like the number of people getting credit cards will increase in the future. I think. Yeah,
but it doesn't it doesn't have to be credit card at all. It can be carrier billing. So I don't know what penetration Google have on carrier billing in the Middle East, but if they do that correctly, there's no reason that the freemium business model can't work, because people can pay in a way that they're used to, or any other payment solution. So pay cards in a shop, whatever they feel comfortable with. I don't think actually getting money in the system is a particularly difficult thing, because it's already been done on the web. This has already been done on the web.
Yeah, people pay everywhere for games, for virtual goods. Obviously they pay more. The ARPU, the average revenue per user, is higher in rich countries, but people also pay for games in relatively poor countries. So because people, like to play, and they see, they have an interest in getting new virtual items. They really like that, and it's relatively cheap compared to a lot of other entertainment, like movies or music. I mean, it's not that expensive compared to that. So, yeah.
Now, as you kind of alluded to before, a lot of these great app developers aren't necessarily the smartest marketing guys in the world. They have a great idea, and they're engineers, and they're brilliant. How do you help them to develop the freemium business models that we've just been talking about? I think TapJoy do quite a lot of outreach work with developers. Is that right?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time consulting with app developers, because we see ourselves as being part of the movement from the paid app model to the freemium app model. And we're not just doing this in games. We're reaching out to license holders of music and movie content and audio, and basically telling people about how great this business model and how it can work very well for them. So we have workshops which show them the best retention techniques of how to get people to come back every day, how to get people to convert into paying users. So we do a lot of that. Sorry, what else? What was the?
Well, I think I've seen presentations by TapJoy before where you're actually quite specific on what kind of freemium products they can sell, whether it's
Yeah. So we do a lot. We've launched 2 funds. I mean, as I said, we operate predominantly around the gaming space, because that's where virtual currency is used most at the moment. And we spend a lot of time. So we've launched 2 funds. One was a $5 million global fund. Another was a $5 million Asia fund. And so we have a lot of analysis on what types of virtual goods in games work. And they're the sort of ones that you'd expect to work. So cosmetic items don't really work, because it's not really enhancing your experience within that app. Consumables, so things that are integral to the game that you're playing, or the app that you're playing, they do sell very well, obviously. And then we talk through people the best tutorial. So the first minute of a user's experience in an app is something that you should spend a huge amount of time on, because apps are so that people throw apps away. like they're nothing nowadays. So really concentrating on the first minute of a user's life, so they understand what the app does and the value of that app is very important.
Okay, I'm just going to see if there's any questions from the audience before I keep banging on. Has anyone got a question?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes, hi, I'm Dorina Gliot. I work for Ingenico, the manufacturer of payment terminals and services. I'm very interested in your view on virtual currencies. So there are a lot of different virtual currencies, but how do you see that evolving? And it's just about exchanging goods in closed loop, or do you see anything there can happen even in the real world? Thank you.
Well, there's a huge uptake of conversion from virtual currencies to real goods. So companies like Jonathan's at the moment. I think it's going to be interesting as this evolves, as these virtual currencies go cross-territory with things like legislation and fraud. They're really interesting topics that no one's really addressed yet, and that's something that Facebook have. I think that's why Facebook haven't gone as far with their virtual currency as they potentially could have done, because of the boundaries that they have to go across to get there. I absolutely think that there will be exchanges with virtual currencies. There's absolutely, exists in the real world. Why wouldn't it exist in the virtual world? So it's something that TapJoy as a company is very interested in. It's just not something that's there yet, because I think to exchange with other currencies, there has to be a willingness in those companies to do that sort of thing. So take, for example, air miles. I don't know whether I know it's not on most airlines' agendas to spend a lot of time working out how they can monetize their air miles outside the ecosystem that they exist in.
I mean, there are also like Zynga, for instance. They've done that. They partner with a brand, and I think they did that with Starbucks. Or basically, when the user buys this kind of product, he's gonna get points on Farmville and stuff like that. So you have mechanics like that that have been already done. Whether it was successful or not, I don't know. Since there is value in this virtual currency, it makes sense that people are going to see it more and more in the real world. I mean, that's
one implication I've seen that was really interesting to me in the US is, instead of going from virtual to real world, I saw examples where, so they have these machines in certain banks where you can take all of your saved up coins, all of your pennies, and then dump them into the machine, and then they convert it into cash.
Coinstar.
Coinstar. Yeah. And so I saw they start integrating virtual currency into that. So you can save all of your saved up coins, and instead of converting it into cash, you could convert it into virtual currency, Facebook credits, to then use in games such as the Zynga games and so forth. And that was an interesting model for me, going from real cash to virtual currency.
I think that's an interesting, in the fighting for users one, that's a great example of a real world example of someone taking what works very well in the real world and converting it into something that's going to drive adoption.
I mean, I suppose the key thing about virtual currencies is cashing them out, isn't it? Because if they stay digital, then presumably you get around a lot of the regulatory problems. I know the get jar, for example.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is cashing out, because obviously the user is a lot more incentivized to commit fraud when you can cash out of a system. So yeah, I mean, that's why virtual poker is allowed, but that currently doesn't have any restrictions on it. Zynga can operate a poker table with virtual currency, but all the guys in the UK and across Europe, they have to have legislation.
Have we time for more questions, Tim?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Questions?
Hello, Amélie Billou from Mythic. How do you improve the rating of the apps, except the download? Do you have other things to improve the rating?
The ranking or the rating?
The rating.
So the rating, the number of stars.
Yes.
So I have a good trick, actually. I have a very good thing, which is legal.
For now.
Which is even better. So basically, I mean, that's something I read on some blog a while ago, and we did that, and it works perfectly. So I'm going to share that with you. Basically, you have your app. It's really important to ask your users for a rating or a comment at the good time. You don't want to ask a user that doesn't like your app to rate your app, because he's going to trash you on Google Play or on the App Store. So there is a good way to do that. Basically, it's basically to ask the questions to the user: do you like the app or not? So basically, if he says no, then you have another pop-up saying, why don't you like it? We love our work. We're going to work very hard to improve our app. Give us your feedback. Then he's going to trash you, but he's going to trash you by sending you an email. So when he sends you the email, you reply to him and you try to fix the problem, or you say at least that you're going to take the problem into account. There is a good chance that if he trashed you on your email, he's not going to trash you twice. So, and then you have the other guys who like your app. So if they click on yes, I like the app, then you say, oh, you know, it's really great that you like our app. It would be really helpful if you leave a comment or a rating on the store. And yeah, it works. Like by doing this, you improve your rating like pretty easily.
Well, can you give some numbers?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it depends on the app. I mean, if you have a really bad app, obviously that doesn't work. It's, you know, it's not going to work. But really, like, you can get, like, our rating right now is 4.7 out of 5 on Google Play. So we have a really good rating.
Got 1 million emails as well.
Yeah, we receive emails, but we listen to the people. And basically, we fix the problems when there are problems. But yeah, coming back to yeah, it's really important to have a good app on Android. It's really important to, it's another advice I would give to Android developers is to buy the devices, at least like the most popular ones, to try the app on these devices. Because if you launch your app without this testing period, then you're going to have a lot of bad comments saying that your app crashes. Obviously, the fragmentation on Google Play is much higher than on iOS. So the big difference between, there are a lot of people who go to Android just porting the iOS game and they think it's going to work. Most of the time it doesn't, because it requires time to actually adapt your game to each of the screens, each of the devices and so on. It's really something you need to do if you want to have a good rating.
Okay, another question? Or maybe Tim, you shoot the next one? Question here.
Hi, I'm Julien Chonaf, working for Sephora Digital. What's the best moment to ask for a rating?
Well, basically, if your user has been there for a long time, it means that he likes your app or is sadomasochistic. I don't know if you say that, because he's not going to come back every day if he hates your app. So, I mean, afterwards, it's how you understand your product. I mean, it depends how you understand it, but I guess that you have to, you shouldn't ask him like the very first time he arrives, because he would be annoyed. And yeah, you should ask him like after some days on your app. And maybe you can, if there are like specific actions that show for you that the user is considering that your product has value, it would make sense to show him then. Or maybe when there is a reward process, maybe he wins something at some point, then you know that he will be happy. So maybe you should ask him at this point to reward your to review your app. That's. Yeah.
I have one on that. So at the previous company I worked for, we developed a few freemium games, and we did some research on that and saw that. So we set it basically the third session or the third time that the user used the game, we would ask them to rate the app in the App Store, and then we would frequency cap that at 2. And so initially we set it at 1. So when they ran the game the third time, used it, we'd send the alert and we'd never show it to them again. And then we've upped that to twice. So we'd show it to them twice and then never again. And we saw a huge spike in the amount of ratings for the game, and that was pretty effective.
But there is something you should not do. You shouldn't pay for good reviews. That's forbidden. Just, for the record.
And similarly, when should you, at what point in the game should you start offering people freemium, virtual items, etc.? I mean, I know that there was a Shrek game that got into a lot of trouble recently because, like, a few seconds into the game, it was like, "Do you want to buy something?"
Yeah,
And that
I
annoyed a
think
lot of people.
I think at the end it's the customer who's gonna say if he's happy or not. If he's like if he has pop-ups all the time saying you need to buy something, he's probably not gonna go back to your app. So at the end, I don't think that you should have some kind of regulation about that. I think it's the user who's gonna say if he likes it or not. You have top grossing games who are like selling like virtual items for very, very high prices. And when you play this game, when I play it, I'm like saying, wow, is it like, are there really people paying that? But yeah, there are. And I mean, as long as there are people who are willing to pay, I mean, as a developer, you shouldn't, be scared to propose that. I mean, it's common sense afterwards, So there is no rule about that, I think.
I think like the mobile world can borrow some learning from the web. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jared Spool and user interface engineering. It's an old school company that they've done a lot of research in usability and on the web. And one thing that Jared calls is a seducible moment. And so a seducible moment is like when a user fills out a form and it's like the confirmation screens. And so when you so you also have these seducible moments in games. And so when a user reaches a certain level or there's an achievement and you give them a thank you, a message, a confirmation, it's at that moment where you can then cross-promote or cross-sell or get the user to do other actions as a reward for completing a certain step. And so I think there's a lot of learning that we can get from the internet and what works in the web and apply that same logic to mobile.
But I just to finish, I think it's important when you have a freemium app, I think to my mind, that you also provide some fun to the guys who don't pay, because these guys are probably going to speak to their friends if they like the apps, and it's really important to have volumes at the end of the day. That's the difference between freemium and paid apps. So yeah, to my mind, you shouldn't have like a barrier saying you need to pay or you stop, because people are really probably going to be pissed off.
Okay, maybe we'll have to stop to sync with the other session in stage 1.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if we can just show our appreciation for the 3 panelists. Thank you very much.